education is a way to mitigate risk. Like everything's risky for someone who doesn't know about it.
Yes.
But when you do your research, research mitigates risk. Let's say that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So what was it like for the people around you? You mentioned your friends eating out, you're bringing in a lunchbox. What was it like, your friends' reactions, potentially partners, girlfriends? You said your partner was out of the mix, but maybe there was another person interested. What, your parents? Parents can be a big...
Yeah. Well, they were very supportive of my first investment property because they'd done something similar. Like they'd had an investment property and had currently one investment property. And so they were very like, no, this is good. We've benefited from that. So I had that example set for me. But I was the first of anyone I knew to have a home. I think I was the first person in my network. But then the second and the third and the fourth, there was a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
And even at the time from like people at my church or other places like, oh, property investing, oh, very risky. It's always going to go down. It's a bubble. And I was like, I don't think so. Like,
it's always a bubble.
Yeah, I don't. I think 200. Like you couldn't even I think you couldn't even build a property for that price in the suburb.
Yeah.
At that time anymore, and I just thought, no. Yeah. You have to take a risk. And I've sort of been of the mindset though. I think in the way the world works now, if you don't take a risk, that's actually the biggest risk of all. Like not taking a risk is more risky than. Yeah, like do your research. I think I listened to 70-something hours of property investment podcasts.
Yep.
Before I felt confident enough to be able to back myself. So it wasn't like I was making a roulette wheel spin and hoping for the best. I felt like I knew the tax system. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew how depreciation worked. I knew how I'd visited a number of different properties. I'd done some projections for the cash flow, and it was cash flow positive or not close to it after tax. I decided that no, with education, because I think education is a way to mitigate risk. Like everything's risky for someone who doesn't know about it.
Yes.
But when you do your research, research mitigates risk. Let's say that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I sort of have the same mentality, and I love that you mentioned that you listen to so many podcasts while you were traveling. Being a builder, we travel job site to job site so much. And I think one of the great tips that I got from someone was listen to history podcasts. So I found this guy, Dan Carlin, great history podcast. And the mentality of people does not change over time. And that's what I found. It just repeats itself. And so, the advice that you got, oh, it's risky, all this, all that, it's a bubble. At some level, yes. But on many other levels, people have been saying that for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And so my dad had some great advice for me as well regarding property, is time is a great equalizer. And so that is something that was very encouraging to me, because he's bought a property that was at the time, and he's a property investor as well, but he bought a property that was overpriced at the time. Just because of the rental yield that was padded by the guy who sold it. So it was a little bit suspect and illegal. But regardless, he bought it based on those facts. And now he sold it for 70% capital gains.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic, result. Took him 8 years to do it. But in the meantime, he did not let that bring him down and bring down his views or what he had learned. Instead, he took what he had learned and he rolled that into future things, which worked out very well. And so, I 100% agree with what you're talking about. And this entire time, so you're a school teacher still?
Yeah.
Down at the Gold Coast? Yeah. So you're earning a teacher's wage?
Yeah. And no help from my parents financially, apart from the fact I was living at home, which is actually a massive help.
It's huge, yeah.
I wasn't going out, drinking and partying and going to the clubs. Like occasionally you'd have a great time. But, there's this idea of delayed gratification. But because I think I delayed gratification in my teens and in my early 20s. So by the time I got to my late 20s, I was able to do a lot of travel. You and I have been to some pretty cool places together.
Oh man, yeah.
and it was actually because of the investment portfolio and the gearing of that that enabled me to have those awesome experiences. Like I've literally been to 70 different countries around the world.
Yeah.
Most of Europe, Southeast Asia, Asia, South America. As I said, I've lived in 4 different countries and worked. Having that extra cash flow through the property investment that I was able to get in my early 20s. You know, I could have invested further in my late 20s and probably been in a slightly better position now, but for me, I do value learning, travel, experiences, and that's what I get from it. So,
everything's a balance, right? You can completely optimize for the property investment side and then just let, lived experience, relationships, and other things fall by the wayside. So, I think a life well lived is something, a life well balanced.
Yeah.
And, I've been the victim of being completely unbalanced. And, potentially you've, found that or seen that in other people as well. So I think it's very good to say like, oh, well, maybe I've got 5-6 investment properties. I can go on a sabbatical for 6 months. And that itself is great because you just get such a fantastic view of how other people live and what other people's mentalities are. And so I found while traveling, being in Greece and Barcelona and all that, it's like, yeah, this is great. But man, the beaches in northern New South Wales and the Gold Coast are actually world class.
Yeah.
Traveling around Italy and being like, man, I really, really miss an Australian latte. And I'm in Italy. This is
what's going on?
This is a bad feeling. But also there's so many other fantastic things that we don't have that is over there. So